Do you want I Heart Spreadsheets or do you want Orc's Nest?
I Heart Spreadsheets.
Okay.
Thank you.
There you go. Wow. Back at it.
Yeah.
Back at the old book club situation.
So it is the first Friday of February.
Yes.
Which means another exciting episode of Hardy's Book Club.
Insert theme music here. That's right.
What book are we discussing this month, Rossi?
Well, we are going to discuss Pierce Brown's Red Rising.
Let's quickly address the elephant in the room here, which is that in November we told you that the next instalment would be from our new house. And here we are in February and we're still not in the new house.
If you'd like updates on our move, you can go to rrossandlauramoving.com. That sounds like a joke, but check it out. It exists.
Yeah. Here is your fair dues warning. Goes without saying, but spoilers for Red Rising by Pierce Brown abound henceforth.
Here be dragons.
Here be dragons.
But it probably would have been a better book if they were dragons.
Don't be commenting saying, oh my god, spoilers. We warned you.
We warned you.
So first question.
Yes.
How much did you know about this book before you picked it up? And what surprised you the most about the book?
Okay, so you mean you're talking about this book here?
I am talking about this book here.
This is the thumbnail. Anyone who has read anything about Red Rising knows that there are a myriad of comparisons to the books that came before it in the young adult fiction genre, specifically The Hunger Games. And so I knew that much. I knew that there was going to be some kind of imperial society with a little game to determine some thing about who's good and who's bad, and that it was going to show the excesses of humans. I knew it happened in space, and that it happened on Mars.
Okay, this is a confession.
Confession?
I have never seen or read any of the Hunger Games.
Ooh!
So I knew there were comparisons to the Hunger Games, but I didn't know what that meant.
So that's actually really interesting, because that meant you went into it without that preconceived notion of these are the Hunger Games.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Okay.
I don't know how I've managed to stay under this Hunger Games rock. But somehow, I think it's because I don't like YA. So even when Hunger Games was becoming popular, I was like, I don't really like YA. So I just didn't engage.
So this book must have been really original for you, Laura.
I knew that it was very polarising. And that a lot of people were saying that you will either love or hate the first book. Yeah. And a lot of people saying that the second book, Golden Sun, is very different in tone to Red Rising.
Yeah.
And some people love that because they didn't enjoy the first one. And some people hate it because they really dig the Hunger Games-esque element of the first one. So I went in thinking, okay, I don't really know what this means. I know that Hunger Games, Katniss, some kind of death trial type thing.
Yeah.
I had a few, I didn't live under an actual rock. I had some cultural touch points. I didn't know what to expect going in.
Another thing for me is that whereas I have read The Hunger Games, and actually really quite like The Hunger Games, or maybe my younger self quite likes The Hunger Games, I haven't read them recently, and probably won't. I did recently read The Will of the Many by James Islington, and a lot of comparisons were drawn. So a lot of people said The Will of the Many is like Red Rising, and I can totally see that comparison. That is a very strong comparison. You've got the first person present narrative, you have the Romanesque society with various tiers of hierarchy, and then you have that game gauntlet thing at the end. So James Islington definitely cites his sources, is very, very similar to Red Rising.
So contrast the world that Pierce Brown has built to our own world.
Yeah.
Would you want to live in the world of Red Rising?
If I was a gold.
Yeah, this is it. The book is essentially in three parts. There's the section in the mines, there's a shorter section where Darrow, our protagonist, has left the mines and is being transformed into gold, and then there's a longer section, the Hunger Games bit. Section 1 in the mines I thought was really good. If the whole book had been in the mines, I might even have said, do you know what, I would have. I would live on this on this planet.
And it seemed like they had a pretty good time in the mines.
Yeah.
Apart from the, oppressive society dictating their quotas.
Yeah.
And
The
laurels thing and all that.
Yeah, and the random executions for singing a song, ?
Yeah, but despite their oppression, they did seem to... I mean, I read that Pierce Brown based the Reds off of those rural Irish communities from the 1800s, that kind of community with the oppressive English. Sorry.
Yeah, can we just apologise?
I'm so sorry, Irish people. So that does seem like they found their soul. They found their something to live for.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting.
They were having a great time.
Having a great time apart from the oppression.
Yeah.
And apart from the fact they had to mine helium-3 and everyone was dying.
Yeah. And then,
Yeah.
Darrow is executed and dragged up to the son of Ares. And then the world should have improved. Like, he's now above ground. He's being transformed in the second section from a red, like the lowest possible rung, to a gold, like the epitome of humanity. So in theory, everything should be improving for Darrow. And I should want to, engage with this world. Not so.
I wouldn't say I necessarily critique Pierce Brown for the portrayal of that world. Like, I think there are elements that are interesting because of their grittiness, because of their imperfectness. But I would say there is something a little bit immature feeling about the way that this hierarchy is portrayed, which makes those gritty elements just feel a bit tonally incongruous.
Yeah, agreed. So everything just put me on edge.
Yeah.
Everybody's fate is predestined. You're a pink, so you are working for pleasure of others. You're a violet, so you're a artist. I hate that. I think it grates on me. I've already got a big working class chip on my shoulder.
Yes, you do.
And it pissed me off.
It was probably meant to, but...
I'm sure it was, but it was very successful in pissing me off.
Yeah. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's also not very interesting.
Yeah. We live in a sort of watered down version of this already. So Spinal Tap. This hierarchy goes to 11. Let's move on.
Well, actually, we kind of almost looked at this. So the next question is, what does the world of the book say about our actual world? And I mean,
we've already kind of covered it.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's optimistic about a potential future or cautionary?
Okay, so it's clearly cautionary.
Clearly.
But it's unrealistically cautionary.
Yeah.
It's amazing how...
It's almost like a caricature.
Yes, that's good. Yeah. It's like, so reading the Sun Eater Saga right now, I'm on Howling Dark, I'm nearly finished Howling Dark. Bloody love these books. And they have quite a realistic view, I mean, with some kind of fantasy elements, of what a far future could look like based on today's society. But it's like, in order to invent the society of Red Rising, seems to have been a real stretch of construction of concept, which just doesn't seem feasible first of all, it doesn't really account for non-white cultures.
Yeah.
I don't think I noticed a single non-white person in that story.
No, I didn't notice any.
So in that sense, you're basically building a future society based on what happens if white people are the only ones that survive. I mean, maybe I missed one, but I honestly didn't really notice
I didn't see any people of colour.
Which is a bit problematic.
Yeah.
In terms of is it optimistic? Clearly not. Clearly it's a dystopia, taking that hierarchy idea to its extreme.
So moving on to the actual writing, away from the world building and into the actual writing, how would you describe the author's writing in a few words?
I would say it was workmanlike. I didn't, and that's not, that sounds like a critique. I don't actually think it's that much of a critique, because really, when you're writing a story, your priority is first to the story. If you're not writing good story, then what are you doing? Prose is like the filigree, the embellishments of your story. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah.
Was there any moment where you're like, oh, that was quite well written?
I suppose it's not really a critique of his writing, but I enjoyed in the mine section where there's a bit where Darrow is being his helldiver self and he has to go down and all of the older, more experienced miners are going, it's too dangerous, you're going to get yourself killed, like come back up, we'll get someone to go down and check on the gas pocket. And he's like, they're old, they don't know. And I was like, that is so perfectly what a 16-year-old boy would say. I did really enjoy that. And like in that first section, I was like, this is really well written. Like the character is really well written.
Yeah. That whole first section, really kicks off with a bang.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was the first time that I've read a book in a while where I was reading it and then I'd have to get up and, do real life. And I'd be like, I just want to get back to the book.
If we talk about his story style, what we can definitely say is that he really starts the story fantastically.
Yeah.
Cuts out the chaff, gets straight to the point.
Yeah.
No bump, which is a shame that the rest of the story has so much of that, because that start is so lean, so well told, so direct, that you just want more and more of it.
I did cry when AO was executed, but I feel like if we'd spent more time in the mines with them, understanding why he loves her so much, understanding why singing this forbidden folk song will get you executed, understanding, the heel that's stamping on them.
Yeah. It would make those moments feel even more impactful.
Exactly.
He'd kind of had in his head, the idea of the story he wanted to tell and wanted to get there as fast as possible.
Which is a shame, I think.
Yeah. And in so doing, wrote the best bit of the book.
Yeah.
So you briefly touched on Darrow being 16.
Yes.
How did he grow throughout the story, and how did the other characters grow?
I mean, literally, he went from being a red to a gold. He was a 16-year-old boy, in the flush of first love, thinking, he's the bee's knees, he's the cat's pajamas. I'm the helldiver of Lycos. These old people, they don't know. They don't know. And I recognise so many of the men in my life when they were 16. I didn't know Ross when he was 16, but I imagine he was probably the same. They think that they think that they know, but they don't know. They don't know they're born.
Would you say his superpower was his arrogance?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then as the story progressed, he maintained a bit of that. But obviously he's then thrust into this world that he doesn't understand. He didn't know existed. He's physically altered and put in this Hunger Games-esque War Games nightmare with a load of people who were born with a silver spoon shoved up their arse.
Shoved up their arse?
Yeah.
Isn't it usually in their mouth? Oh. The way he becomes the character of the second 2/3 of the book, where he is the gold, where he is suddenly incredibly capable of, physical achievements, but also these kind of mental achievements. There's this ability to deceive, to come up with these grand ideas. I felt that was incredibly contrived. His growth throughout the book felt really contrived.
Agree. Hard agree.
You got a character that you've got to know in the first third, and then he's almost a completely different character in the next 2/3.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was less a growth by linear degree, more than a growth by massive step.
Yeah.
Which is
and actually being carved up and physically altered. I just don't understand how he went from this one guy to this one guy in like a 3-month period with Mickey and Dancer, which are they were interesting characters that I want to know more about.
I'll probably find more about them in the next book.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Not that I'm going to read it.
You're not going to read it? Okay.
Sorry.
But everyone says it gets better.
Hell no.
I'm open to it. We'll talk about that later, but I'm interested in knowing what happens to those characters, but there's just so many books to read. Secondary characters, how did they influence Darrow throughout the story?
Well, there's obviously AO.
AO. Or audiobook, they called her EO, didn't they?
Oh.
Which made me think of the planet EO, spelled I-O. Sorry, moon EO. Got to get my astronomy right.
So there's EO, who I think the biggest influence that she has on him is by dying.
That's a trope.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Can we stop writing interesting female characters and then killing them to further a male storyline? Please.
But then once he is once he is in that patrician role, so the various people surround him, Cassius,
Yep.
Mustang,
Yep.
the other ones. I mean, there are some interesting things there. I think that...
Who was it Titus?
Yeah.
Titus was the other red that we didn't realise was a red until he died.
And that was...
Are you sensing a theme?
This is less about how Titus influenced Darrow, but my gosh. What was Pierce
that
Brown doing
about?
with all of in this book?
Oh my god.
It was rough. It was... And...
Can we just also say that we didn't really discuss this book prior to filming this? So the
Yeah.
fact that we're in alignment on this is... We didn't talk about this before.
No. This is... It's funny that so many of the things we didn't like about the book we've shared.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think that the way that Pierce Brown uses to impact Darrow's mission and to impact the characters around him is really, really lazy. In contrast to that, I thought the element between Darrow and Cassius, where Cassius doesn't realise that Darrow killed his brother, that was possibly the most interesting character dynamic for me of the whole book.
Agree.
Like, basically any time where the main character's trying to hide a secret, especially when it's told in that first-person present narrative, like in The Will of the Many, having that hidden secret makes that narrative so much more interesting and really raises the stakes. So anytime that those two were in the same area talking about... Julian, thank you. I forgot his name. That was interesting, and that I liked. Let's talk about... I was going to say favourite scenes. I mean, are there any favourite scenes that you liked about? You kind of mentioned the starting.
I enjoyed the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole first section in the mines was very strong. If you consider that this book is in 3 acts. Act 1, very good. Act 2, less good. Act 3, actively bad.
The problem is that once you got into the games, there was very little to keep you interested, I think. There was one shocking scene that I did like. And that was when the jackal cuts his hand off.
Oof! Yeah, no, that was fairly brutal.
That I did actually really like.
The whole way through this third third, where children are dying and being... And the grown-ups that are supposed to be overseeing proceedings are just like laughing it up, having a glass of wine. I'm just thinking, this is a school! What are their parents going to say when they come to pick them up? Oh, sorry, your son's dead.
So the book did end, eventually. What did you make of the ending?
Disappointing.
Disappointing? Why is that?
Because he goes off to live with Augustus after Augustus was the one who sentenced Io to death in the first act. And I understand his reasoning that that Augustus is the one who's going to be able to position him best to take down Gold Society. But there was that other Gold who made sure that his ring from Dancer was returned to him. Clearly a nicer person who had taken an interest in Darrow. I forget their name. I was like, why? Yeah. Why, Darrow? And I love a flawed protagonist. I've said this previously. I love it when a protagonist does something stupid and I'm like, argh! But this was just a real eye roll.
I agree with you about that. I did like the general arc of the end where they kind of decided, like, who cares about killing our friends? Let's go and kill the proctors on Mount Olympus. That I thought was quite cool.
Why wasn't he put in prison? Like, I understand the whole thing about accelerating Darwin's law, like natural selection, like the weakest die. I understand that, right? But surely there are consequences for completely disregarding the rules of the game and going and killing the arbitrators of the game.
Kind of hand-waved, isn't it? It would be more interesting, I guess, if it started the next book and it's like, okay, right, here are the consequences for your actions.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it does start the next book.
I don't think it does.
No? You haven't? What? How do you know? Gut
feeling.
Gut instinct. Okay, so we didn't really like the end either. Themes on messages. Oh, who cares? you could ask the author any question about this book, what would it be?
Why?
Okay, give me more than that. There is actually... No, maybe that is interesting. Why was this the book you wanted to write?
Yeah, why? Yeah, why did you write this book?
I mean, it's a bit confrontational.
Yeah, no, to be honest, Pierce Brown, I know there's a very slim chance that you're watching this. And if you did start watching this, I feel like you've definitely switched it off.
This is crying into his tea. Sorry, I actually have a tea prop. Let's use it. No, it's fine. He's got millions of
he's just dabbing
dollary dues.
Yeah, he's just dabbing his eyes with his £50 notes.
Yeah.
I'm not. This isn't. It sounds like I'm criticising him for writing the story. I'm not. I'd like to understand his reasoning. Like, I'm not articulating this.
What you're getting at is like, why was this the story?
Yeah.
Because writing a book takes a lot of effort,
as we both know.
So what was it that made that about this story where he was like, I need to get this story out into the world? It might be that it was all. Maybe this was like the setup for the story he really wanted to tell. In which case, okay. I mean, didn't enjoy it, but fine. Would you recommend this book to anyone?
No.
No.
Sorry, Pierce. I was gonna say if you like YA, maybe you'd enjoy this. If you like that sort of coming of age, school based narrative, you might enjoy this. But then there's too much murder and for me to recommend it to anybody in good faith.
Anyone who would be
anyone
be drawn to young adults.
Yeah, like people that are into YA should like. I doubt that they are emotionally mature enough to deal with the adult themes.
There are adults who are into YA.
Yeah, adults that are into YA, fill your boots.
Yeah.
But if you're actually a young adult, there is an awful lot of murder and sex.
Yeah. Not to like protect, not to like say like, oh, they can't handle it. I think if I was reading this book and had suffered from then I think I would find it quite triggering, to be honest.
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't recommend this book. If I've heard lots of great things about the sequels, which is really conflicting. So maybe this might get people angry in the comments. Maybe what you should do is read the synopsis for this book. And then just start reading a book too.
No.
I mean, why not? Why not? You can go back and read the first one if you decide you like the second one. I'm trying to challenge people's preconceived notions about reading. Who cares?
Basically, the takeaway message is if you're writing a novel and the tone is YA, don't have all your female characters murdered or...
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we've really said our opinions about this book. It's time to rate it. What would you rate it, Laura?
I would rate this book 2.5 out of 6 Helldivers of Lycos.
That's actually slightly higher than I was expecting from you.
Because I really enjoyed Act 1. Act 2, I feel, had potential. Act 3 was not aimed at me. It's not aimed at a 32-year-old woman who doesn't like YA. It's a book written by a young male author for young male readers.
I would give it 1 out of 2 gravity boots.
Ooh.
Just because I sort of did enjoy the beginning.
The setup was good.
Yeah, I saw good, it's like flashes of excellent story beats. I already mentioned the jackal cutting his own hand off. I thought that was great. And I did think that the build up towards that assault on Mount Olympus was interesting and carried me forward. I'd lost a lot of goodwill with the rest of the book to really get the most out of that bit.
Did this discussion influence your rating at all?
I'd gone into this with a mind of saying 1 out of 2 gravity boots because I thought it was quite funny. And I think maybe I would actually give it 0.75 gravity boots out of 2 if I was really being honest after this discussion. I think we really kind of worked out, fed off each other, a bit of a feedback loop.
Yeah.
That we really didn't like it.
Ross from the future here. I just learned that grav boots in this book, because I listened to it, I didn't read it. I just learned that grav boots, it's spelled without a space and in camel case. There is no room for camel case in fantasy literature. I'm docking in another half a grav boot. So it's now 0.25 grav boots out of 2.
I was gonna give it 3 Helldivers of Lycos, but
Yeah.
I decided to only give it 2.5.
So there you go. We're basically in the same boat.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a shame. But
What are we reading next month, babes?
we're much more confident that we're going to like this book for the next month because Laura's already read it and it's one of her favourite books.
Yeah.
But it's a book I haven't read. Where's the prop, darling?
It's on the shelf.
Oh, it's up there.
Your
call is very important to us. The next book for our monthly book club is Rivers of London by Ben Aranovich.
Love this book.
One of your faves.
It is one of my faves, and part of why it's one of my faves is because it's set in London, which is where I'm from. I've met Ben Aranovich a couple of times.
And we might be meeting him again in March.
Yeah, and one of the characters is named after the river that ran through my grandma's garden,
It's pretty cool.
which is pretty cool.
I'm going to be listening to the audiobook, which I believe is narrated by Cobner Holbrook Smith.
Correct, yeah.
He's one of my favourite audiobook narrators.
I don't want to sway Ross. Like, if Ross doesn't enjoy this book, he's more than allowed to tell me so, and I definitely won't be making him sleep on the sofa. But if you want to join the discussion, if you have thoughts on Red Rising, if you think that we were, unnecessarily scathing in our thoughts of Red Rising, let us know in the comments. We would love to argue with you.
We've reached the don't give a part of our history.
If you have read Rivers of London and you want to discuss with us as we read, find us on Instagram at Hardy's Books. We're also both on Discord. We're both quite active in Andrew Watson's Discord server.
Yeah, jump on there.
Jump on there. We'll be discussing as we reread or read for the first time. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. We thrive on your validation.
Yeah. We're only accepting thumbs ups at this time.
Yeah, no thumbs down, please.
you.
And just while you're down there, hit that subscribe button.
Yeah. And then go on hardysbooks.co.uk and buy a book.
Yeah.
Have we covered all the bases?
I think so. Have a lovely February. Happy reading.
Goodbye.